So what we did was we've taken the existing act and tried to make amendments to it so that people would more easily understand that what we're doing is simply trying to make it more easily understood, more easily enforced, so that it could be.
Great. Tell us a couple, 2 or 3 main changes.
I think some of the biggest changes have to do with confusion from the initial bill, that perhaps there was something that needed to be clarified or that's been misunderstood or misinterpreted, and that being that this applies only to businesses with employees in Alabama. The employee has to be in Alabama, or the work has to be done in Alabama, or the business has to be engaged in a transaction in Alabama, so that we're not trying to regulate business outside of our borders, and we're also not putting onerous requirements on large companies that may have a presence outside of Alabama, so that they're not put in a position of e-verifying their entire workforce all over the country if that's not what they have to do in other states.
So it applies just to work and workers in Alabama?
Yes. Yeah, and there's a number of changes that effectuate that, but that's the basic thing. One of the questions was the act applies to projects and to certain transactions. And project wasn't defined, so no one knew exactly what that meant. So they were interpreting that to mean lots of things like purchasing goods. So if you purchased a particular product from a company that was out of state, then you have to e-verify those people, or they have to have been registered with e-verify? No. So transactions and goods are not going to be covered by the Act at all. Now, if you enter into a contract to provide a thing to a governmental entity, for example.
A what?
A computer system.
Okay.
If somebody's going to construct a computer system in Alabama, then the Act would apply. But if you're going to buy a computer from IBM, you don't have to get an affidavit from IBM. Okay. Of course, the affidavit requirement's another significant change. That affidavit requirement's not there anymore. It is a struggle. From the law enforcement perspective, they wanted something that enables them to more easily comply with the law and not violate people's constitutional rights. And the way that section was written, there was an opportunity for someone who wasn't perhaps up to speed on what's constitutionally allowed and not could get tripped up. And we wouldn't want that to happen to a citizen or someone that's here lawfully, and we wouldn't want that to happen to that law enforcement officer.
Right.
So we're trying to give them the comfort that they can enforce the law properly. And so what Section 12 will apply to is only the issuance of a traffic citation or a lawful arrest. So only in those two circumstances would someone's lawful status be checked. And then only if a reasonable suspicion exists that the person is not here lawfully, and assuming it doesn't interfere with some other investigation or work that the law enforcement officer is doing. Now those provisions were already there, but the key changes are the lawful arrest or issuance of a traffic citation. And E-Verify is still there. It's the big change so far as contractors and subcontractors relationships are concerned is the requirement that you obtain an affidavit from your subcontractors and their subcontractors in order to insulate you from liability. That affidavit's requirement's been removed. Doesn't mean you're going to be responsible for your subcontractors and their subs. You still will be, but only if you knew they were violating the Act, and that has to be shown with clear and convincing evidence.